Welcome back, everybody. This is Tyler Weeb from Pro Physique. Welcome back to another edition of Diaries with a Bodybuilding Dad. If you haven't seen the last two videos, the intro, the first one on training, just make sure to go back, watch those, or you can go down below here in the subscription, click those links, watch those, and then come on to this one. Before we go ahead and get started, just make sure to go ahead, head on over to my Instagram here. You can follow along as I just go through this journey of getting back onto the bodybuilding stage after a few years. But today I wanted to talk about nutrition, macros, and I really kind of, debated about this one for a while if I was going to talk about it or not, because I do feel like it's talked about a ton, everybody is talking about it, but ultimately, for how many clients that I talk to and people on the phone that I talk to that still haven't quite heard of this or really fully know what this is, why do we do this, I decided it's just too important to talk about, as I do find that, or I do believe that it is the best way to actually change your physique, and it's not dieting. Yes, you are right. I am not talking about dieting. I am talking about reverse dieting and the process of what that is. So, everyone knows to diet, right? We gotta diet, we gotta lose body fat, etc., etc. We have all kinds of diets out there, keto diet, Atkins, well, I guess those are the same thing almost. But we do have all of these other things that we are always trying to do to strive for that fat loss. And what people never really think about is the opposite of that. The idea of actually fueling our body, giving it enough food to have energy, to build muscle, to keep our metabolism a little bit higher, because when we do diet, our metabolism does adapt downwards, and so the more we chronically diet, the less and less food that you tend to have to eat to just try and lose a pound. And so when we compound this over years of chronic dieting or yo-yo dieting, you will see a lot of with this in periods of very strict dieting, but then periods of going back to surplus eating, and now people are putting extra body fat back on. You do see a lot of that. And so a lot of the times when I'm talking with a potential client and we're looking to lose some body fat, it is quite rare that I actually will have someone who is ready to diet right away. Typically, we do have to go through this reverse phase, and it is just part of the journey and the process of achieving this goal. It's usually not the most fun thing to talk about, and not a lot of people are excited about eating more food, because we have got it in our minds that it's like, okay, more food equals I'm just gonna get fat. But I think what we tend to see once we start to kind of break it down is that because of that extreme strict dieting that people do tend to go through, those periods of eating more food are typically either right back to their normal habits, and because they've strictly dieted for so long, their metabolism has downregulated, and so all of a sudden they throw 1,000, 2,000, a bunch of extra calories at their body that's not prepared for, and then they put some rapid fat gain on, right? Or B, you just have people who are just, maybe not paying attention, to their macro ratios, and so they do just tend to eat just a bunch of food. So why is this reverse important? Well, like I said previously, I think that this is literally one of the best ways to change your physique for the better. So what I like to say is, yeah, it's great to lose body fat. It's fantastic. But guess what? That just reveals what's underneath the body fat. And if we don't really have any muscle, well, now we're just kind of skinny. We almost have that skinny fat look. And so to build that muscle, we do have to go through that reverse phase. And so for myself, as a bodybuilder, it does, take a lot of time for the body to achieve appreciable muscle. And so it does take some time. And so as a natural lifter, as a natural bodybuilder, taking that time to, really give my body the fuel it needs, to take the time to train hard, to eat, in a caloric surplus, and to build muscle is important. And that's part of the reason why I took so long off the stage. the biggest issue and the biggest feedback that I got was, you just need more muscle. I was lean enough. My posing was pretty good from what I remember, and being on stage and watching some other people pose. I definitely, I think, beat some people on the posing and just how lean I was. But unfortunately, in my case, bodybuilding is about how much muscle do you have while you are super lean, and I just didn't have quite enough muscle to really kind of place high and to completely do well. I still got top 5, but that was something that I needed. And so knowing that building muscle, you know, takes a very long time, and I'm talking years and years to really kind of build up that solid base, I just knew I had to take the time to do that, so that the next time that I stepped on stage and went through this process of prep, that I was going to bring a much, much different physique and a much improved physique. So yes, it can be boring. Yes, it can be monotonous. And yes, you do not see results every week, like maybe when you are in a fat loss phase, which can be very difficult for a lot of people. I get it. It is probably one of the hardest things to do day in, day out, is eating in this caloric surplus when maybe the results are just kind of not non-existent, but very hard to see. It's not easy to see 2 pounds of muscle, 3 pounds of muscle when you are a bit fluffier, right? Because you are going to just put on a little bit of extra body fat during this time. And so it can mess with us mentally, especially when our end goal is to be, you know, this leaner version of ourselves that we have in our mind. And it's when we're not seeing that, it's going, well, why am I doing this? Like, what's the point? I just want to be dieting. And so it is a very hard thing to do, especially again, when you just aren't having those results on a weekly basis, to kind of get up every day and eat the same food and hit your numbers. It gets boring, it gets monotonous. I am definitely guilty of that, and that's also part of the reason why I wanted to have this goal again, is because I had gone 2 years of probably not being, you know, as consistent as I should have been. I was still, you know, probably in that 80-20, but as we got closer you know, to the end of these last couple of years, and before I, you know, made that decision to step back on stage, I was probably at about a 50-50, if at all. I don't think, you know, for the month of November, December, part of January, I didn't really track at all, and I knew I wasn't eating enough, and I could tell. My training suffered. I wasn't happy because I knew I wasn't doing what I had to do to reach this goal of building muscle. And just, you know, my general motivation for training and whatnot was starting to dip, because it was getting boring. I had just gone 2.5 years of, you know, just trying to eat, you know, enjoy life, and I think we just do need to have that end goal to kind of keep us motivated. Now, I'm not saying that for you, you've got to go through 2, 3, 4 years of reverse dieting. I think within the context of me, you know, that was what I needed. For the most part, I don't think the majority of people need that long of a reverse, although I will always be an advocate of longer reverses, because again, just the more time you can spend in a caloric surplus, the better your training becomes, the more muscle you build, and the more you change your physique before you kind of go into that dieting phase. And so just for me to be able to have that time to build was important, and having now kind of this end goal date is really helping me stick to my numbers on a daily basis. And it's funny because it's only been about a month since I decided that I was going to do this, and I'm already running into issues where there are days that I don't want to track. I don't want to hit my numbers. I don't want to eat this much protein. I already run into that, and I've already slipped up and not hit my numbers multiple times. It just happens, and I think we have to stop beating ourselves up when we make these small mistakes, because when we start to think of the grand scheme of things and how long this journey is, you know, I always think of it as a lifelong journey. It's not just getting to stage, although that's the big goal right now. I'm also in it for the long haul and the long-term benefits of training and taking care of myself, just the health benefits alone. And so having maybe that one day, you know, where I just maybe didn't quite hit my numbers, I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm not perfect. I'm a human just like everybody else, and just because this is my passion and this is what I do doesn't mean that, you know, it's always easy for me. And so I think when we start to look at look at it in that, in that viewpoint, we start to have a lot more grace for ourselves. And when we do, let's just call it screwing up, even though I don't think that's a bit of a harsh term, because I think that does encourage some negative self-talk, but maybe when we just didn't quite do what we wanted to, it provides an opportunity for us to learn and to get better as we continue to move forward towards that goal. It is just like any goal that we are trying to reach. Even someone who has been doing this for so long still isn't perfect and still isn't going to get it right every time. But it's that consistency over time that truly leads to those results and to those, habit changes and to that discipline and all of those things that come along with it. And so for me to not be so hard on myself and trying to be perfect, I just go, hey, I'm just gonna be my best version every single day, whatever that looks like. And if I don't quite do that, I'm not gonna beat myself up. I'm not gonna be super mad at myself. I'm gonna recognize that I'm just not going to be like that every single day, every single minute, every single hour. It's just not gonna happen. And it's then about going, but you know what? I am consistent 80% of the time. If I am not consistent that 20% of the time, and we start thinking over the time of a lifetime, guess what? It's really not that much. And so I think, bringing that into any goal that you are trying to reach, especially one that is as difficult and as long and as a marathon as achieving a physique, understanding that the love is in the process of it and not necessarily the actual result, although that is awesome and we do want to stay focused on that, but having fun with the process, learning about ourselves through this process and understanding that maybe when we don't do quite what we wanted to, it's okay as long as we are moving forward and learning from that. So for me, weekends, I'm sure just like all of you, are the hardest. Even during a reverse, it's just the hardest. You're out of your normal routine, it's not your work week, you feel like you've done such a great job over the week, so you're like, hey, you know what, I want one day. But it's, again, just having that consistency over time to keep hitting your numbers, training hard, all of the stuff that is going to eventually lead to success. So it really is just about taking care of your current self so that your future self is becoming who you want to be, and establishing that consistency, establishing that discipline. That's when the ball really starts to roll here. So things are going pretty well so far. I'm still having a few days, every other week, once a week, a couple times, whatever, where maybe I'm not quite hitting my numbers, but I'm being super consistent. My macros right now, right around 240 protein, about 525, 550 carb, and right around 70, 75 fat. So definitely, consuming a lot of food just to stay in that caloric surplus, which does sometimes make it a bit more difficult to eat all of that food in a day. But you know what? Things are going great. The scale is actually going up, which I will talk about a little bit more next week and more of the wrap-up version of this as we kind of just talk about the last month results, overall thoughts, feelings, and then setting up the next month ahead. So be on the lookout for that. But I think I'm going to end it here, guys. I know I could probably talk all day about this, but we're going to go ahead and stop it there. So reverse, so important. It's where we build muscle. It's where we build our metabolism. It's where we improve our physique and, really be able to reveal something once we do get into that fat loss phase. So if you can take 6, 7, 8 months, a year to stay in that caloric surplus, nothing too crazy where we're just putting on a bunch of body fat, but you're recovering well, you're fueling your workouts well, that is just going to improve your physique so much. You do a year of that, I can guarantee you, you're not going to recognize yourself. You're going to be able to diet a lot easier. Maybe not a lot easier, but it's going to be a lot better than just trying to chronically diet. And I think you're going to see a lot more results. So I'm really excited to kind of show you guys the transformation of what a reverse can bring by the end of this when I do start prep in January of next year. But that's going to be it, guys. Again, just make sure to hit that subscribe button. Head on over to my Instagram. Just stay along, keep along with this since we are only doing videos once a week. Really appreciate all of you. Looking forward to sharing again just this journey with you. If you ever have any questions, feel free to drop those below. Shoot me a message. But hopefully you guys can get something out of this, whatever journey you might be on, whatever goals you might be trying to achieve right now. So have a great rest of your day, guys. Enjoy the weekend, and until next week.